All right. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. My name is Victor Paredes-Colonia, and I'm part of our ITAM Outbound Business Unit. And I'm excited to have another one of these ServiceNow events, this time focused around cloud cost management and optimization. So join me today as we talk about cloud cost management. And before we get started, just a few little announcements. First and foremost, information here may be privileged and confidential, so please bear that in mind. In addition, we may answer some questions or demonstrate some information that is forward-looking. So just bear that in mind that some things are subject to change. But without further ado, again, thank you for joining us, and good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. This is one of our other ServiceNow events where we're helping all our customers deploy, adopt, and achieve value faster with their investments in ServiceNow. More specifically speaking, we're going to talk about cloud insights and really understand how to set up success for cloud insights. And to do that, I've also brought another one of our product managers to help us do that. My name is Victor, and also joining me is Patrick Lowndes. Both of us are part of the ITAM Outbound Product Management team. And joining us today is Rohan Tyagi. Rohan, thank you for joining us. We understand that you're part of the ServiceNow Software Asset Management team, and you focus specifically on cloud insights. So we're very excited to have you today.
Yeah, good morning, Victor, and excited to be on the session. Thanks for inviting.
Of course. And so for all of you out there, today we're going to talk about four areas. The first and foremost, I'm going to have a conversation with Rohan about why cloud insights is a strategic imperative for modern IT asset management. Then we'll dive a little bit deeper into roles and responsibilities and stakeholder management for your cloud management program. And then what is it like to set up goals for cloud insights and gain optimization through that product feature? And finally, we'll have him dive into a demonstration showing us how to ingest billing data, set policy settings, and then ultimately demonstrate a cloud workflow. Like everything, please include any questions or comments in the chat. We'll address those along the way. And as always, please stay laser focused on the topics of the day, share any insights you might have, and contribute what you know. This is an interactive forum, and we're going to get to open up the mics and get your questions as we proceed. So let's get started. Rohan, I'm going to ask the first question, maybe at a very high level, just to bring everything in macro focus, and then we'll dive back into details. But why is cloud insights a strategic imperative? What do we mean by modern IT asset management, and where does cloud insights fit in that spectrum?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And Victor, I would like to start from the statement that with the cloud journey, customers have already adopted the cloud, or they are very actively on their digital transformation journey. So there is no question whether they will adopt the cloud or not. It is all about expanding the cloud adoption. And a lot of times when we are expanding the cloud adoption, the spend on the cloud increases over time. And what starts happening is the same problems that we used to have with the traditional IT asset management will start coming up in the cloud environments as well. For example, the decentralization of this technology, the whole purpose of this being more agile, cloud being more easy to adopt, brought so many advantages to the companies. They became more agile. They started releasing their products much more faster. All of that is good. However, that decentralization also started bringing up more problems around how do we manage the spend? How do we manage those assets in the cloud from a security perspective, from a governance perspective? So there was always a need of being able to control everything from one place, be able to have insights from a central perspective, but then it was not the right time. It was not the right time to be able to control all of these. But now that customers have already adopted the cloud, they understand the economics of the cloud, it is becoming much more relevant in the market. And that's why it is such a strategic imperative with IT asset management, because these were the same principles that people have learned or customers have learned over time. The goals are the same. If you talk about an on-prem infrastructure or on-prem data center, the goals are the same. If there is an asset somewhere out there in my environment, and it has a um, financial aspect to it, I should be managing it as an asset. If it has a security risk, I should be managing it, or at least I should have visibility into it, even if I'm not directly managing it. Even if it is a decentralized infrastructure, I'm fine with that. That could be my company policy because it is helping my company grow. But at some point, somebody should have an overall picture of the entire infrastructure. And that's what I mean by saying that it is a strategic imperative, because you can leverage all the benefits that a decentralized structure or a cloud environment can bring to your company, but at the same time have those policies and have those lessons that you have learned through IT asset management be applied to the cloud environments as well.
Nice. So you touched a little bit about some of the main objectives in Cloud Insights and having similarities with that of software asset management or hardware asset management, really the visibility of tracking assets. Can we jump a little bit deeper and specifically call out use cases or actual goals that some folks have with Cloud Insights? I think you touched on those. I'd like to jump in a little deeper on those.
Yeah, so one of the goals that every company usually starts with, and we can call it as the, if we want to divide it into crawl, walk, run phases, the crawl phase is where companies would just try to understand as a central organization, how much are we spending and which in the cloud and which teams are responsible for that spending. So you should be able to correlate the cloud costs to your business centers. In fact, some more mature companies correlate these cloud costs to the use cases or the business uses or the application benefits that they're achieving. For example, sometimes customers start or people start to think that increase in the cloud spend is probably not the right thing. They are losing control on the cloud spend or whatever the reason could be. So it has a negative connotation to it. Whereas if you think carefully about it, if this increase in cloud spend is helping you grow your business, if you are able to correlate the unit economics, that the amount of money that you're spending in the cloud is also increasing the revenue that you're generating, that's not a bad that's not bad, right? So it's just all about the basic correlation of how much you're spending in the cloud and what value it is bringing to your company. So that should be the very first goal around it. And then you can then build up on this goal and you can start having other goals like if I have a pretty large cloud environment, am I making the best use of that environment? Can I find opportunities to start saving or stop wasting the cloud resources? In fact, pretty interesting. We just keep on focusing on the money that we're wasting or the spend that we are letting go away in these cloud environments. But then there are new use cases that are coming up. For example, the ESG, the environmental impact of cloud resources. Every major cloud service provider, be it Azure, Google, or AWS, all of them are now focusing on how much there's what is the impact on the environment of their cloud resources. So it's not just about increasing the spend in cloud and how can we control the waste. It is all about. It is also about other initiatives that are becoming more relevant in this environment. So I think, coming back to your question about the particular goals, I would say that the very beginning, the very start is to be able to correlate. I am not using the word allocate. I'm still saying that even if you're not mature enough to start allocating, at least you as a central team should have information to be able to correlate what you're spending, whether this spend is bringing value to you or not. And if it is not bringing value, how can we start cutting those expenditures?
Got it. So having visibility, correlating, understanding your Cloud Insight infrastructure environment, and then from there advancing to, hey, how am I spending? Where can I cut waste? And then even to something like ESG, like you were saying, expanding into even more use cases. So there's definitely a lot of development evolution that someone can take in a Cloud Insights journey.
Right, and I would still I forgot to bring out one more point here, is that a lot of organizations, as I was talking about crawl, walk, run phases, a lot of organizations have become mature enough to get control onto the allocation perspective part of it, or correlation part of it, that this is the cloud spend that I'm spending on these business units. And they also get the optimization recommendations that, okay, if these resources are not being used, I can potentially save this much amount of money, or I can potentially shut down these number of machines so that my environmental impact is low. However, just getting the information and turning it into action is a whole different game. And turning it into action is where I want to stress really heavily, because till the time, I mean, if you are just looking at the potential savings and you're not able to take any actions, you're not able to report it back to your executives, right. Those who are looking for goals and KPIs, that, okay, it's good to see that I can save $200,000, but have you saved even a penny, right? Mm-hmm. And that's where the operate state comes into play, the third one on the slide deck, where you can create more and more automation so that the recommendations that you're getting to save money can be executed automatically. Or even if they're not getting automated, at least the people who are working on those recommendations to take the action have all the relevant information. They can take those actions faster and achieve those savings.
Yeah, that's a good point, that there are individuals that need to understand what is the progress being made with the investment in Cloud Insights, right? So you're doing all this activity, you're saving all this money, or you have the ability to save all this money, but are you actually either A, taking action, and B, reporting the savings and success along the way? So that's a good segue into our next segment, actually, in terms of understanding who are the folks that are responsible for carrying out this type of activity, and who are the folks that you should be reporting back to. So who are the stakeholders? What are their roles and responsibilities? So with that said, why don't I ask a question like this? Who are the folks that we should have in a cloud infrastructure environment that we should be working with, and having some sort of activities and explaining back what we're saving on first from that?
Right. So I think the very foremost, the most important persona that you should be focused on, or you should be asking for support, is the executives. There should be a drive from the executives that either that goal could be having, as I said before, having a central visibility into how much you're spending in the company, so that you have the leverage to negotiate the prices with your cloud service providers, right? If you do not know, if you just think that you're spending $50,000 as a company for Azure, you cannot go back to them and ask for a discount on the SKUs and all, right? But if you start looking at your environment deeply and you find out that there's $50,000 pockets, like there are tens of pockets of $50,000, it becomes a totally different story, and you can then just go back to Azure, and you can go back to AWS and ask for the negotiations and discounts on those prices. So I think there should be, first of all, a good sponsorship from the executives that is applicable to all the programs, whether we're talking about FinOps, whether we are talking about traditional IT asset management, and all those things. So keep that in mind. That's definitely executives. And the second thing that we are seeing here is the persona of cloud operations, or FinOps. FinOps might be a new term. However, the origination is the IT and finance or the procurement teams, which started getting their bills more frequently on a monthly basis from cloud service providers, and they wanted to understand that are we paying the payments that we're making to these cloud service providers, are they going in the right direction? Do we even know which teams are using them? Can we start asking them for accountability and all those things? So this push started coming from the IT finance teams, because they were approving those bills and those purchase orders. And so that's where these IT finance teams started working with the cloud operations teams to understand, hey guys, these are the bills. I want to correlate them with the resources that you have in the cloud. And that's where these two people started talking to each other. That FinOps organizations or FinOps frameworks started coming up. And so I would say that a number of companies have now adopted these FinOps frameworks. So this persona has also become really important. So the FinOps person will be the mediator between your finance teams and the cloud operations teams. and they will be the people who create frameworks, who will create policies, how the whole function of cloud cost management should work. There are a lot of teams where the IT asset management teams have come up to become FinOps teams as well. But in some other cases, these FinOps teams are separate from IT asset management teams. And the reason, and there is a reason why these two teams should be talking to each other, because there is so much common knowledge. If shared between these two personas, you can bring a lot more value to your organization. So do not ignore the IT asset management teams if you have a FinOps teams, or if you have evolved the FinOps teams from your IT asset management team, then you're good to go. However, just to summarize everything back, executive sponsorship is most important. And after that, FinOps or IT asset management and finance teams are really important pieces of this, the persona puzzle. And then there are some other stakeholders or other teams that you should also be keeping in touch, is the CMDB or IT discovery team, risk management team, security teams. These teams can also benefit from the information that you have in the IT asset management organization.
Yeah, thank you, Rohan. So I want to go back to the executive sponsor piece. If I'm a new customer, or if I'm looking to expand in the Cloud Insights area, what are the types of conversations I should be having, right? How do I secure executive sponsorship commitment? And then along the way, how do I maintain it? Because a lot of times, we get a lot of executive sponsorship for a lot of our programs or projects, but it just kind of fizzles away, and they either lose interest or they change directions in terms of what is important to them. How do we maintain that conversation with them?
Yeah, so one of the ways that could be very effective is to create the sense of accountability across the organization. So if the conversations that you're having with executives is around is around let's bring the whole spend management of the cloud environments into one place and hold the teams accountable for that spend, and not let them drive this. Those individual application teams can drive the innovation. They can drive the pace at which they innovate and they release their products. However, when it comes to having a better control on how much they can spend and what is the best way to spend in the cloud, let's bring that control back, and then we can hold them still they use those resources. So I think the executives will understand this term or these type of conversations better, that we are not taking control from our application teams. All we're asking for, or all we should be driving as a company, is to have some sort of accountability. They should be answerable to questions like, why are we spending probably a little bit more on certain projects which were deprioritized from an executive perspective, right? So those type of things ring the bell in the minds of these executives, where they try to, because they have the more strategic view, they have the high level view, and they say that, okay, these, let's say, applications, order processing, application reservations, tons of applications that they have in the environment, and they know which one needs focus, which one does not need much focus, and they want to allocate the spend, they want to allocate the budget accordingly. So if you bring those type of conversations towards them, and they understand that they can start having control this way, and they can hold those teams accountable, that's what becomes a more effective conversation. They become more interested in that. That's one way of approaching these executives. There are so many others, but I just give you one example.
Okay, great. No, I appreciate that, Rohan. Thank you for sharing that. I think with any program, SAM, HAM, Cloud Insights, executive sponsorship is key, right? And then, as you called out, there are other commonly involved stakeholders that you might even see in other areas of IT asset management. But then similarly, there's other stakeholders that either they're not always involved, but either benefit from information that you can share with them with respect to, in this case, Cloud Insights, right? So security, vulnerability, vendor management, and risk management. I'm going to pause here and see if there's any questions in the Q&A forum.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and move forward. And when we think about, again, just the importance of managing costs in the cloud, I'd like to just drill into this a little bit further with you, Rohan. One of the, as we're waiting for the first couple questions, I see one of them just came in, but why don't you give us just a quick answer? Which clouds does Cloud Insights cover? Let's just kind of touch on that just to make sure people know.
Yeah, at this time, Cloud Insights application supports the three major cloud providers, AWS, Azure, and Google. So these are already GA. We are already supporting these three cloud service providers. Some others are on our roadmap, but these three were the top ones. And one thing to keep in mind is that the major benefit that you get from softwares like Cloud Insights is being able to manage hybrid cloud environments. And in case of Cloud Insights on ServiceNow platform, you are in fact getting a better opportunity to manage hybrid infrastructure, not just hybrid cloud, but hybrid infrastructure on-prem and cloud altogether. So, and the reason of the importance of hybrid cloud environment is, of course, that when you start allocating the costs, so imagine that your team one is using all three cloud service providers, right? Depending on the services that they acquired, maybe Azure is better for something, Google is better for containers, blah, blah, blah. So they have spend in all three cloud environments. Now, when you are as a central IT team trying to allocate or correlate the spend for this particular team, it is really hard to go into each one of those portals, figure out how much they're spending, filter down the data, export it, do Excel math, and then send it back to them, right? So that takes so much effort. What hybrid cloud environment spend management will bring is just one single pane of glass, not just single pane of glass, but also the way you talk about cloud spend, the methodologies you create, all of that is the same. So
it's all tied in. No, I like that. And that's why it's important. I mean, if you have most companies, they might have a primary cloud that they try to focus on. We're hearing that, but there's also going to be, those other clouds and use cases where it makes sense to have those stood up as well. Let's go to a question from Alicia. She says, hello, how does Cloud Insights work within the context of the Common Service Data Model, or CSDM, for those who maybe use that acronym? So maybe you could give a little bit of color on that.
Yeah, and that's a very good question. I would say, if I was given a chance, I would have spoken about the CMDB and CSDM importance to our product, is that everything that we download from the cloud portals, all the metadata, all the infrastructure information, it starts federating the same central CMDB. And the benefit from federating that CMDB is that there is a lot of times when the information is not just available from the APIs or from the cloud information that we gather from the cloud service portals directly, but that there is a lot more information that is already available in the CMDB coming from different sources like discovery, application mapping, security, and all those things. So when we consolidate all this information, tie it to one CI, it becomes even more influential, or even more important to your organization, that you can start reporting on things where you're missing the data from the cloud service provider. For example, if you're missing a tag on a cloud resource, you will not be able to allocate the spend to that particular business unit, right? But if you have APM, and that APM is telling you that this CI belongs to application XYZ, you can then report on the spend for that application, even if you're missing the tags. So that is where CSDM or CMDB, all those logics come into play and become more important.
That's great. Yeah. And it's important, again, just to know that when you're dealing just with the native cloud provider and that solution, that obviously it's not going to be talking apples to apples. So the data model will be different, which means it's a lot more legwork for you to figure out how to make sense of it within ServiceNow and your larger, ecosystem. Not to mention the, cloud cost projections and things that you can do, in more advanced features that we have moving from on-prem workloads all the way up to in the cloud. Let's go to this next question, and then we'll probably keep the ball moving here. But I see a raised hand. So Rainer, I'm going to go ahead and allow you to talk here. I just hit the button. So go ahead, share your question for us. Just come off mute. I think you're still there. And Rohan will answer your question. But go ahead and come off mute. Rainer, you're up next here. And let's see. And if we don't get you this, oh, there you go. Go ahead. Yeah. I think you just had it. Try it again. Oh, I see you coming off. Perhaps just type it into the chat, excuse me, the Q&A, and we will get to it here as that comes in. So that's all right. Okay, so we will, and again, we're going to have another question and answer time here in just a little bit. So while you're taking time to type that in, let's hit on this last part, Victor. So I'll send this over to you, and we'll continue answering questions here near the end. So no worries here about Rainer or others that want to ask questions. So, all right, Victor, back to you.
Thanks, Patrick. Yeah, so Rohan, I want to talk now about goal setting. So I'm going to get started as a customer in my cloud infrastructure, in my cloud insights project, if you will. And I want to do everything, right? So if I want to do everything, is there a better way of just saying, hey, I'm going to go reach for the stars and just, track all my cloud spend? Is there a more methodical way about setting up your goals for cloud insights?
Yeah, there is, and there must be. I mean, it is very important to have goals, but also it is very common that people forget about setting the goals before venturing into a particular space. And that even happens with the cloud cost optimization, cloud cost management space. So there will be certain situations where someone will go into a conference or learn about FinOps or sessions like these and come back with the message that there is so much waste in the cloud and I want to just save it. And so unrealistic goals or some things that are not very specific creates a lot of problem. For example, let's say I went into a conference by Gartner or Forrester and I came back with the message that 30% of the spend can be saved, right? And I create this as a goal. I want to cut my cloud spend by 30% because that's what analysts have told me in the conference, right? This is not a realistic goal. I mean, not literally, it is realistic, but you have to have a phased approach towards it, right? So what could be a phased approach? What could be a more realistic way of approaching this? And is this the very first step you would like to take? Probably not. So what you need to do as a company is create your own roadmap. And a lot of times people create roadmaps and they then try to correlate the things with the product roadmap as well, like the tools that they're using. I'm not just talking about ServiceNow, but any tool that you may have, even an Excel sheet. So you should also be careful about what is the product's roadmap along with your own roadmap. So things that are achievable with your goals and with the goals of the product is going to bring you the most success. So maybe the first step should be that I want to manage the cloud spend in a specific way, right? So if you want to, so that is the first step, that you want to manage the public cloud spend. Second step could be that you want to save on that public cloud spend. And the third step could be that you want to create budgets for those application teams in your company. But how do you approach all these three phases, right? So the very first goal, instead of having it to be more broad, make it narrow. Say, I want to start allocating monthly cloud costs to begin with just 2 business units and learn from them if they are okay with the information that I'm sharing with them. Do they have any feedback? Once I have good control on those 2 business units or cost centers, then I will start expanding it to the rest of the company. So maybe the first 3 months would be just learning from two business units and expanding it to the rest of the team. In 3 months, you got this much, you started doing allocations, executives will be happy because they see the impact that you promised, right? Now you move on to the second step of start saving the money. Also look at what your products can help you do it. whether one product can do it or three products will be required to do it, right? And how do you strategize around that? So now maybe the next focus is not cutting the spend by 30%, but the next focus could be start savings by right sizing over provisioned only compute resources, not all the resources, just the compute resources that you're focusing on, right? And then continue it for 3 more months. Then once you have a good control on that, you can pick up the next resource like databases or whatever you have in the environment. Maybe you do not want to do that. Just stay on compute and also execute on the third step and then do the cycle again all over again. So that is the phased approach that I try to suggest my customers in my conversations with customers.
Yeah,
I hope it resonates.
I think that was really well said, Rohan. I was kind of captivated by the way that you structured that, because I think the way that you have to think about this is you need to be intentional, right? You need to just not cast a wide net and think that, hey, I'm going to get whatever I can and that's going to be successful. I think you need to start very small, very prescriptive. And even if you're getting noise from the background that says, hey, why are you starting so small? I think it serves two purposes. One is to demonstrate that you can do it. And two is to demonstrate that if we did this in a larger scope, we would get very similar, if not better results, right? So I think that's a really great way of thinking about how to set any type of goal when it comes to IT asset management.
And Rohan, if I could jump into it, it feels like I don't ask my 5-year-old who just learned how to ride a bike. I'm not asking her to go off, large jumps and do tricks at the age of 5, right? She's learning how to round the corner and have, still have some speed and go up and down hills. Like, we're not hitting bike jumps yet. And so in the same way, we want to get good at the basics and understand, the mechanics of FinOps, right? And then we get into those larger, I would say more highly mature use cases where you're going to see a lot larger optimization. So that's a great, I'm just pulling that example out of my personal life here, but hopefully it's relevant as well.
Yeah, that's good. I like that.
Okay.
Cool. So Rohan, you set the stage for how to set goals. What I'd like to do now is maybe jump into the product and let's demonstrate a little bit how to go about from the goal setting aspect into getting some results. So maybe you can walk us through how Cloud Insights works from a very high level, and then from there, let's jump into the product.
Yeah, sure. So I'm sharing my screen now. This is the Cloud Insights application within the ServiceNow platform. And on the landing page, by the way, I'm not doing a complete demo of the application. So I'm just going to hit on a couple of use cases, which could be very relevant. And maybe that's the way you can start your goal setting, right? So I'll just quickly go through the landing page. And after that, I'll go into the use case. So on the landing page, we are giving you information about your hybrid cloud cost management. All the 3 cloud service providers that we support here are right here. If you just want to focus on one of them, you can select one of those. Otherwise, you are getting a consolidated view into your hybrid cloud environment. You can see how much you're spending on a monthly basis. In the last 30 days, this is how much you spent. And as compared to this last 30-day spend, in future, how much you can save if you perform any of these optimization actions like right sizing or changing the infrastructure configuration. Business hours, or schedule the resources to be on or off during certain times, unused machines, removing the machines which are never being used, or making use of your reservation plans. So you can click on any of these and go into further details. What I will do for today's session is pick up on the scheduling processes. Again, I'm going back to the same topic I focused on in the very beginning of this session, that taking the actions, making it easier to take those actions is going to be the game changer. If you just see how much you can save and you cannot do much about it, there's no point, right? So let's keep that mindset here, right? So I'm going into the business hours case here. Again, you can familiarize with the UI later on, but I will straight away go into the actions. So what I can do here in this product is that I can create policies. I can tell the system when the machines should be up and running and when the machines should be shut down, so that I don't waste spend during non-business hours, during the hours when those machines are not really required. Now, there are a lot of times questions being asked that this is a cloud environment. We mostly have all the machines running all the time, right? Which is not true. It is just a perception. Machines are not required to be running all the time. There are certain teams, or almost every application team has a dev environment. Every application team has a UAT environment. Those environments can be shut down. Maybe production can never be shut down, but dev environments can be shut down, right? So you can definitely save on those type of resources. So what I will do here is just create a policy to for my AWS environment, and say schedule for weekdays, right? And this will, my intention is that I will schedule my AWS resources to be only running during weekdays and a certain period of time, right? So here, I will give an order. The run order is important because if the same resources are shared amongst policies, then based on the execution order, they will be prioritized, right? Again, something that you will understand once you get more familiar with the product, but for now, just imagine that I have given an order in which these policies should be executed one after the other. So in this case, I'm only creating this policy for AWS. So I will select that provider. In the service accounts, I have multiple service accounts at AWS. One of the service accounts that I'm responsible for as a teammate is the rewards processing application. So I will filter down only those resources which fall in my service account. So if I'm the admin, I can create policies for all the service accounts. But let's say for now, I'm focusing on just the rewards processing, which is the environment that I'm responsible for, or application I'm responsible for, right? And even within rewards processing, I only want to focus on resources which belong to dev environments, right? So I can filter the resources by saying that all the resources which have a tag called environment, and the value is dev, I want to create this policy. And once I'm done setting up the properties of that policy, I can then select here what is the type of the policy it is. So there can be three types of policies. One is the report only, where I just want to see the data, how much I'm spending in business hours versus how much I'm spending in non-business hours. Once I have confidence looking at the data that I can shut down the machines during non-business hours, I will then convert them into either a manual change approval process or an automated change process. This is where the action or operate states comes into picture, becomes much more important, is that you are telling the system that you have to go through a change approval process. So the approval workflow, people who should be approving these type of changes, people who should be asking you questions, all of that is just routed through a change record now. You're not exchanging emails with those people. You're simply allowing them to collaborate with you in the platform, right? So I'll first of all, as a first step, I would just go with a report only, the safest option. I just want to monitor how much I'm spending in the cloud during business hours versus non-business hours. So I'll select report only, and I can select what is my schedule. What time should this machine be up and running? And that is my 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. on weekdays, Eastern Standard Time. There are many other business hour schedules. All the schedules in the ServiceNow system can be created. And once a business schedule is created, you can make it based on fiscal year. You can make it based on different types of things. Business hours or scheduling is pretty robust in the ServiceNow platform. So once you have defined that schedule, it will show up here in this dropdown, and you can select that. Once it is saved, it will start calculating your spend. The information that it has downloaded so far, it will start calculating based on that, how much you have spent during business hours versus non-business hours. I'll give you an example. So let's say now I have created a report to see how much I'm spending in a business hour versus non-business hour. So you will get data something like data like this. So in this case, I have already selected a particular policy which I'm interested in, the one that I created. Order set. So the one I created just during this demo was rewards processing. It will take some time, so I'm opening up existing one. So this one is the one that I created early in the morning. It was called order status production. And in this case, you can see how much you're spending during non-business hours, which is the salmon color, and the other one is the business hours, which is the blue color, and evaluate how your spend is trending across these two categories of hours. In this case, what I'm seeing here is that my spend during non-business hours is also pretty high, which could mean two things. One is that my machines are required to be used during those non-business hours. So maybe I need to tweak my schedule and say that these machines should be running during a certain hour other than what I have selected. So now the benefit here is that the policy that you created as report only, before you really take actions, before you convert it into action, you can understand what is the perfect business schedule for you. Once you have decided that this is the schedule when these machines should be running, you can then go back to it, modify your, let's pick up one of these, modify the policy and say in the modification, now I do not want the 8 to 10 weekdays EST because that was the graphs were showing me that I'm spending money or I'm using those resources during other hours as well. So I will modify this. I will switch to a different business hour schedule, right? And once I change to that, then I want to perform the automation behind the scenes. I will say that power on the machines during this time using this flow. And these flows are already defined in the ServiceNow platform. You can modify them, but they're already available out of the box. So power on flow will tell you which actions should be taken to start the machine, and the stop flow will tell you which action will be taken to stop the machine. So what will happen in the end is using these policies, now that it has become let me go back, now that it has become now that it has become a auto approval policy, this is going to take, these actions will happen automatically, and we will start saving money in the product. And you can visualize that on the dashboards too. So that's one example of leveraging the automation, creating rules in the system so that you can start saving money as soon as you implement the product.
Oh, that's great. And I think one of the things that I took away with your demonstration there is the actions can be as simple as just visibility, report information to me, all the way to let me do some manual activities based on the data I'm getting, all the way through to, hey, now that I have studied this fairly well and I know what's happening, I can automate action in the background so I don't have to worry about that anymore because I've vetted that policy, I understand it, and it's going to work on its own. I can focus on other policies or other activities, right? So that's kind of the workflow, if you will, how you should manage that.
Exactly. And this is going back to the same things that we discussed around goal setting, that when you set the goals, you should be, it is hard to win confidence, right? So the people who are asking or who are suggesting that we can save money by changing the infrastructure, the engineering teams will not accept that that statement blindly, right? You need to build confidence with them. So once you take these type of phased approaches, that let me analyze the data first, let me do something called reporting only, and then share that information with you. Then we work with each other, we tweak things. Then we make it a manual process where you approve it once you are satisfied. Then once I've learned from your manual approval process that you always approve these type of recommendations, you have confidence in these type of recommendations, then I can automate that process. Rather than going all the way on automation, doing something wrong, losing the confidence, losing the executive sponsorship, and the program fails.
Yeah, no, that's very clear, and that makes a lot of sense. So you're bringing in data, you're looking at the information, and then you're taking action. I think that's very clear. Very good. I'm going to see if there's any questions because we're getting close to the end here. I think I saw somebody post something in the chat. Is that what I saw? Oh,
yeah. Somebody was asking about the copy of the slides and the recording. We're going to put both the slides and the recording on the ITAM community, so you'll be able to get access to this after we wrap up. which is going to be helpful. And let's see if there's any other questions, and think particularly about goal setting around cloud, and also just some of the workflows that Rohan walked through, or if you have any other questions about the topics we talked about today, let's go ahead and just put those questions in the Q&A. And while we're watching those come in, Rohan, I'll ask you this question. Tell us about, again, companies. You did a great job talking about the phases of just get the data in there, focus on that. Can you maybe tie in how this relates? If you're on this call and you're listening as more of the software asset, team, that maybe you're not as close to these cloud operators and the Cloud Center of Excellence, what advice would you give to those folks that are coming from the software asset world, for them to kind of start a conversation with, and also to know how can their discipline be relevant to these cloud operators? So what advice would you give to those SAM folks that might be listening in?
Yeah, that's a good question, Patrick. And it has come up recently in my conversations with customers more often than before. There is, so we are talking about two bubbles right now. We're talking about a software asset management team that typically works with the on-prem infrastructure. They work on the licensing costs, they work on the license optimization costs, right? And then there is a FinOps cloud team, which do not have to deal with licenses or license complications, because cloud is so easy, simple. You just pay with your credit card online. And so what ends up happening is that in the end, as I said before, they both are assets, whether they are on your on your own premises or they're on the cloud, they're assets, and they have financial implications associated with it. So the same finance teams who were asking different questions to the SAM team are asking a different set of questions to the cloud team. However, when you try to fill the gaps for both these teams by working together, it becomes much more synergy in the company. For example, there could be cloud resources which have metadata that is not available to the SAM teams. SAM teams have enterprise agreement licenses. They know that they have some surplus of licenses. However, they cannot, they do not know whether they should give it. And that is also wasted spend for them, right? But if they knew that there is also a cloud team who is spinning up SQL servers or Windows servers in the cloud, and they are buying licenses on the fly, I wish I could have shared my licenses, which are just sitting there surplus. I could have shared with them if I was talking, if these two teams were talking to each other, right? So that is the power, that is the type of information when you work together, share information you can use. So Microsoft Azure, to be very precise in my argument, Microsoft Azure allows you Azure hybrid benefits. They also allow you license mobility type of concepts, right? These things are not clear to the cloud teams, or even if they're clear, they're not easy to really make sense because they do not have visibility into the software assets, right? And likewise, software asset team does not know where they can apply those licenses in the cloud. So bring your own licenses is one concept that a lot of teams, when they work independently, cloud FinOps and the SAM teams, they do not leverage that benefit.
Yeah, wow.
That's where they can use it.
Those are
another example I can.
Points. Go ahead. One more example, and then this is great.
Yeah, one more example I can give you is that a lot of teams, when they are going through the digital transformation journey, even if they have achieved the digital transformation, they have moved almost everything to the cloud, but there are certain things that are still on-prem, that deciding which ones to go to the move to the cloud, or maybe there are certain resources which are coming end of life on-prem. Now they need to make a decision whether they renew their licenses or they should move to the cloud. Those type of conversations can also be eased if they are talking to each other. If the SAM team knows how it is to live in the cloud, they can take better decisions, right? So to simulate situations like, my license is coming end of life, should I move to cloud or not? Those type of conversations can also be helped if you two are talking to each other.
And that might even involve going back to stakeholders. That might involve like a data center team that's intimately aware of that infrastructure environment. And they might already have that cadence where they're looking at software that might be expiring, or potentially even hardware work, that needs to be upgraded. and there might be some questions there. So if the ITAM group is going to Cloud Cost Center of Excellence, that CCOE, the FinOps team, I think there's a really productive conversation there about the IT spend in general from the CIO level, and how much of that should stay on premise versus how much of that should transition. And there's some features coming out as well in the not too distant future around that, about assessing the cost of like simulating that cost between on-premise environments and what that could look like in different clouds. So that's great.
Yeah.
Okay. That's awesome.
If we have if we have a couple of more minutes, Patrick, I would like to bring up one slide that we did not flash here. Victor, slide number 17, if you can bring that up, please.
Sure.
That will just give better context to the listeners about the things that we're talking about. So in that slide, what I mentioned is that if you think really hard, sit together, both the teams, the FinOps or Cloud Center of Excellence teams and the ITAM teams, if you look at their charter, their goals are pretty much common, except a few things that have changed due to the evolution of the technology, right? The ITAM teams had the responsibility to forecast how much the IT spending will be. They had the responsibility to distribute the spend across the entire organization, allocation, right? They had the responsibility to reduce the waste in software licenses. Likewise, there's so many things that the ITAM teams used to do. And now FinOps teams also have to do the same things, right? It's just that ITAM teams are still struggling with audits. That was the only thing that Cloud Center of Excellence teams are not doing, right? So this slide is very powerful to give you the context that the lessons that you have learned can be reused. Do not have to reinvent the wheel, because your goals are common, your goals are same.
And it's, Rohan, it's almost as if the ITM teams, if you've been a practitioner for 15, 20 years, you've got a 10 or maybe even a 15-year head start on the same kinds of disciplines, right? That you might have on the Cloud Center of Excellence, only 5 or 7 or maybe 9 years at the earliest adopters. So I think there's a lot of overlap and lessons to learn. So this is excellent. This has been a really insightful session. So I'd love to maybe move forward and we'll go all the way to the end here. Victor, how should customers continue to get value here around Cloud Insights?
Yeah, and we had a great conversation with you, Rohan, so thank you again. One of the places that I highly recommend our customers to navigate to after these sessions and just throughout their ITAM journey is the ITAM community. Consider that your home base. From there, you'll be able to get access to a lot of our guides. So first and foremost, the Getting Started guide is really key, because that helps you understand not only other aspects of our ITAM portfolio, but specific to Cloud Insights. There's a lot of information there about how to set up for success. There's links to trainings, as well as other documentation that we either referenced today or that we didn't reference today, just by the nature of our limitation with time. But there's a lot of information out there that you can get access to. So start there at the community. There's also ability for you to communicate with other folks in the field that have similar questions that you might be having. And if you have general questions, a lot of folks in the community are there to answer and help you. So I would navigate to that. And so with that, I think this was a great conversation. Rohan, again, thank you for the time. Patrick, thanks again for your time as well. And to all of you out there, we hope this was valuable to you and helpful. Please join us again in the future. We're going to have more of these live event sessions focused on different topics. But with that said, have a fantastic week, and we'll talk to you all soon.
Thank you, everyone.